Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the CCM FT6 Pro hockey glove review. This glove is pretty interesting because it has the holes and the new air thing in there, so we're going to talk about that. We are going to compare this glove to HGJS, which is their pro stock version of the FT1 gloves, and it's pretty good. It's the closest Jetspeed glove I have to this one, so I want to kind of compare the two, and we'll talk about protection and stuff like that, as well as do the 3D hand test and a little bit of protection test on here. I also got my producer to hit me with a stick. We'll slash my hands and fingers on here to talk about the protection on this a little bit. So we're going to go over that, see how it is, also do the grip test. And full disclosure, CCM sent me the whole CCM FT6 Pro line to do content on and to make reviews. So the gloves, elbow pads, shin pads, shoulder pads, pants, and stick. So here is the glove one, and I've used the whole line, so we're going to talk about them. But before we begin all that, if you're shopping for hockey equipment and you're in Canada and the United States, check out the links in the description. If you're in Canada, to Hockey Supremacy. If you're in the US, to Pure Hockey. Clicking those links and making a purchase gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can make more content and doing more reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. So firstly, a bit of an overview of this glove. It is their tight anatomical fitting type line. I can't remember if they call this the tapered or anatomical or not. It's their tightest fitting line there is, basically. Tight in the fingers, tight in back here. It kind of blooms a little bit in the cuff, but this is kind of tight as well. It's a comfortable fitting glove, and it's not quite as loose as the Tax. The Tax is definitely a more looser fitting glove than this, but it is kind of one of their bread and butter gloves and probably one of the most used lines in kind of the pro scene right now. Before, it used to be Tax was one of the biggest ones. I think this is kind of taking over that. Not this one, but specifically this glove actually, and the FT4, the OHL, CHL, WHL type thing as well. So this is an interesting line there, and I'm always a huge fan of this fit profile for a really snug, tight fitting glove. So going on the outside to begin with, a pretty standard backhand and stuff. You do have this little TPU right here, which is a bit more kind of a different material. Like when you get the pro stock gloves, you very rarely get that. And it's kind of like how on the pro stocks you have a little bit of that just kind of screened on there versus the actual layer right there. It depends on the glove model and specifically what teams do, but pretty standard overall. You have like different nylons right here, different textures, but nothing kind of crazy going on there. And you do have some of that kind of continued on, printed on piece right there as well for the graphics. And then you have a nylon right there. Looking on the side, you have their pretty big FT6 Pro branding, and something that kind of goes away. You can see with the Pro models where the Jetspeed kind of branding goes away because you can't have that many logos. So you basically have 1, 2, and then sometimes you'll see what logo like brand it is or specific model it is, but you don't on these. So that one probably goes away, so you'll have like 1, 2 right there. But you can see on the retail one what it is, and it has this kind of TPU right here too, and a kind of nice 3D looking logo that's on there. So nothing crazy there. And you have your nice, well, I know people hate this logo, but I don't really mind it. It's their new stitched on logo. As you can see, it loses the little serifs up there. Going over like the brakes, the fingers, and the padding. This has a D3O package in it, as you can see with the little logo. D3O is off of this now. There's no more D3O in this glove. I think it came off on the FT4 Pro, so this is kind of the second generation for it. So now you have basically a 2-layered foam piece. So you have a softer layer underneath, you have a harder plastic layer on top, and then you have a plastic layer on top. So really it's a 3-piece total layer, but 2 layers of foams and plastic inserts as well all throughout it, which is a solid piece and a lot better than what some of the competition is doing to save weight, because this is a very light glove. Overall design is kind of closer to the FT1, which is this is what based on, than the FT4. So the CCM is doing a thing where their backhand gloves are slightly changing, and well, to be honest, all companies are kind of doing this because they have to have a new iteration, where the original FT1 was like this, so you could see it had the 2 pieces on the outside. The FT4 kind of swapped it, so it was like 2 pieces here and then 3 pieces over here, so it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 pieces. So it was kind of swapped on where this piece was. Now the FT6 kind of goes back to it, so you have this, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and then this right here. Now I think they cut these down a bit just because the rolls have the segments in them, so you don't need them quite as big, and they made these ones bigger. But it doesn't really affect mobility at all. You can see opening and closing this is totally fine. And segmenting and how much this hand closes is nice too. They have this piece right here because this is a pretty solid break on the palm. As you can see, it kind of breaks significantly here and then a little bit here too. So that will help keeping sticks from coming in there. I might prefer to see that piece right here as well, It wasn't on the old ones either. You can see it in between, but you can see the gap that is caused with this, right? So maybe I would prefer that to be a little bit like another piece in there, just to help with, one, keeping things from coming in there, but two, it also helps just with the roll define a bit too. So when you have that piece in there, it kind of helps keep it a little bit rounder. So with that, it might be just a bit with that and a more natural feeling. A small nitpick and not a huge issue whatsoever. Index fingers and everything, you can see your 3-piece. Index 2, 2, just the same as what they've had before. The tax goes 3 and 3, so this line to be a bit different, they go the 2 and 3. And if you go to the fingers, you can see they're tight enough where you can't really get your finger in there all that much. And same with right here, you can see very hard to get an actual stick through there. Like, it hits that finger piece before it goes in all the way. So overall, pretty solid design on that. And we go on to the index finger, and you again have plastic inserts on the sides as well as a foam. Just these are single foams here. I think there's a dual density here as well, kind of standard here, and they're pretty solid flex thumb. I'm a huge fan of this flex thumb. They've been doing it for a while. It's not quite as good as what the Bauer 3-1 piece was, but Bauer's taking that out in some gloves. So this is a very fantastic design, and it's on their Pro ones, and it works very well, and I wouldn't really expect them to change it or want them to really change that. Now when we get on to the cuff, this is where you have a very soft foam over here, and you have a denser foam in the middle. And I can't tell if this is plastic. I don't think it is, because I can kind of squeeze it all the way through. So you have a denser foam in the middle, but you do have that softer foam kind of on the outside. And honestly, this is where I really wish CCM would kind of do what they do with these, because this has a plastic insert, or at least it definitely feels like it has a plastic insert in here for extra protection. They don't on the retail model. So I wish they did that just to beef up the protection on this cuff, because it's one of the kind of weak spots with a lot of retail cuffs, especially with how this is a flex cuff, which we'll see right here. You can see how that kind of flexes out a bit, and it has spandex right here. So that force basically goes in without plastic to dampen it, foam directly to your hand through that mesh right there. And just as an example, like, that transfers straight through, and it's kind of disappointing. And this is a thing where I always talk about with these flex cuffs. They have this piece right here, right? And they have this flex cuff. You could do it. Now, you can't do it with this liner because it doesn't have a liner, but if you have a liner right here, it can cover that gap, and you can see how big that gap is right here. All that spandex, that is basically no protection besides a one piece of foam going through it. You could have that liner kind of go through to give you more padding on there, as well as, because if it's up here, it is going to flex with the glove as well, so it can move with the glove, so it wouldn't really be a huge issue. Or they could do it on this side as well. You could kind of sew in something here or right here and just push it past this cuff a little bit, try to do something there, but companies don't, and I guess this is adequate enough for it. When you go up here, you do have just foams in the cuff flex as well. You have a foam and plastic right here for more protection there, and then just foams all the way through. So not super protective there, but good enough, and a little bit of flex so you get some coverage there, and it is pretty blooming and open. I'm a huge fan of it. No issues with any of my wrist guards here. I don't have the old 2S Pros that got in the way of everything, but no issues of wrist guards there, so it was pretty solid all around. But that cuff protection there could be a little bit better. And speaking of protection, I did the test with my producer slashing me on this glove and on the fingers. Pretty hard. Okay. Is that harder? Okay. Harder. Okay, one more. Try to get like right here. And basically the results are, this glove is slightly better. Now, here's the thing. This is a D3O glove, so it has D3O in there, and this is a pro stock glove. So these are always better. I shouldn't say always. They're usually better than the retail counterparts in terms of protection, but they're usually heavier, hotter, which this one is. This one's still pretty light, but it does have some things that make it hotter. D3O is one of those things. Backhand protection on here was still pretty good, but without that inner liner, it definitely has less dampening than what this one does. Maybe an actual layer D3O would help a little bit with that. But I think if they manage to just kind of thicken up something in there to have a little bit more cushioning in there, that would help stop that transfer. It's not bad or anything, it's just not as good as what these are. But these are pro stock gloves, which are better than, I'm going to say 99.9% of retail gloves out there. So this is kind of going up against one of the best. Finger protection was actually pretty solid and very close to this. You have a dual density foam, so pretty soft foam right here, and then a very dense foam up top, and then a plastic insert. Where this one, it does say D3O, and I'm not sure what D3O they're using here, because this foam down here does feel very soft as well. Almost as soft as this foam, So there's not a whole lot of density on here. And on my previous XP gloves, which this one isn't an XP, I haven't seen a JS XP glove. But unlike my HG12 XPs, this is a lot denser D3O. And then there's all as one piece. So it's only a 2-piece plastic and then all D3O. So this is a lot softer. I think that is the D3O layer at the top. So this probably isn't D3O. That's a D3O, then plastic insert. So this one, the only real difference is you don't have that one tiny layer of D3O, but it's still a dense foam. And the finger tips worked, well, I should say the finger protection itself was very, very comparable to this. So this isn't a full D3O package, or this doesn't feel like it. So it's pretty close to what this is, and that's pretty impressive since this is a very good pro stock glove and this is a retail glove, so pretty solid protection. A little bit more details on this cuff. It is that flex cuff, and you can see it kind of move a little bit. It doesn't move a whole lot, but one of the big reasons it doesn't move a whole lot is because this piece also moves with it. So you can see if you really move that down, the flex cuff moves more, but because that moves, my wrists can't bend anymore. But if you move that down, the flex cuff is going to move down more and more as well. So a really solid design overall, where like Bauer has a lot of limiting pieces where this doesn't flex, and I think Warrior has recently. CCM has kind of gotten that down to a good design place where the stuff does move very well. And the backhand too does have that ridge over here, so it kind of slides up, so the cuff, if you do go like this, it rolls up with it and doesn't get in the way with just solid design. CCM has been doing that for a while now. You can see it right here. Warrior kind of advertised it with their QRLs, and I think companies have really done a good job of kind of mimicking that, and this works very well. You have your outer pieces on here for finger protection, outside hand protection, which is honestly really solid. CCM has been really good at this in the past and has been making them really solid. No huge changes from the previous ones, but since the QLT, they've been doing, well, probably even before that, but the QLT was really good, and this continues to do that as well. So you have plastic and then a foam behind it. Now the interesting part on this outer shell and design is specifically right in there. So you can see the holes. There's one right there, and one right there. So kind of the interesting about this glove too is that you can see right down that hole all the way into the back into the material on the inside, which is just the nash right there. So it's not that black nash. So it's kind of cool how you can see that there though. So this showed up previously on the ASV gloves with their Nest-Tec, where they had that shop locker, and then they had Nest-Tec behind it, and it was for air to go in. And I even said it'd be really nice if they put a little hole on the side, because when you skate like this, air would be able to go into there, and there's a little hole on the side. This is, so their AER-TEC idea, and the whole line has AER-TEC on it all over. And it, again, started with the ASV line, where if you cool off your hands and your body, you can perform at your peak level for longer, and it's a science proven thing. It's things cyclists have been using for years and years, where they put their hands in like basically ice baths and put their body in ice baths, so their body keeps cooler and they can keep performing longer and longer. So if you cool down your hands, it's one of the big parts, then your rest of your body can keep cooler faster. This is the idea behind that, and it honestly is not a gimmick. It totally works. And I noticed this right away switching between this glove and another glove, and my other test was one glove on one hand and this one on the other, and you can instantly feel that air going through there. And because you're on a rink, you are in generally cool air, and that cool air is going through your hands and cooling your hand down. Now I know a lot of people, especially like the pros, they take their gloves, and to dry them off, they put them on those heat things. They're basically hair dryers, right? For gloves, stick them on there, they heat up. You see it behind the benches all the time. Dry off the gloves. This isn't going to do something like that, but this is specifically going to keep your hands cooler, and it totally works. And this whole backhand padding, which doesn't come out, but it's this blue material in here that I'm really hoping comes off on camera because I can't really see it, but it's this blue material in here that's perforated the whole way. That helps the air go through totally. So when you go like this and you blow into here, you can feel the air going through. When you're playing, this thing is working. The air is going through there. Your hands are keeping cool. I just came off of a summer season, and it is the summer here, and it's been as hot as it's ever been. Playing with this and like getting your hands cool and stuff feels fantastic. Now this glove runs ridiculously hot compared to this one. Well, one without it, but just with some of the different materials in here, where it has like the Nash fingertips and this one doesn't. Air doesn't flow through here as nicely as this one does, and it definitely helps keep you cool, and it works, and it is honestly one of the best changes on this glove that I've seen. It works on the other pieces too, which I'll talk about in those review, but this does make a solid difference. I'm a huge fan of this, and I hope to see it go on forward and keep happening. And this is stuff that has happened before. There's been mission gloves with holes in it. Sometimes ideas get recycled, and when people actually have a better idea of what they do and everything, really the only big drawback is that this doesn't have a liner that pulls out like this does, and it's kind of just sewn into there, so you can't pull that out, and you get a little bit less protection in there just because you don't have that liner, which, yes, even though it's a soft thing, it does dampen for protection on there. Love that this is here. Would probably love to see if they could put one right here as well. That would be pretty interesting. As it stands, there is kind of a little piece that velcros out here that, like, this whole side right here isn't the AER-TEC part. So that is just like kind of a normal liner in there. So as it stands right now, that isn't really an area they could do, but it'd be interesting to see if they can change that. Core-TEC, which are core shorts, and people have heard of these before. They were labeled under Under Armour before. Now Bauer sells hockey specific one, but Core themselves sell their own line of pants and supportive clothing and apparel. Basically, this stuff helps you with growing strains, growing pulls, and helps keep your hips tight and everything like that. And speaking of injuries, I kind of pulled a growing playing in the playoffs a few months ago and have had to keep using these Core-TEC shorts to make sure my growing doesn't get worse. When I don't wear them, I can feel it and it hurts kind of to walk the next day. With these, keeps everything nice and tight and keeps everything from stretching out too far and getting injured. So these have been a huge savior for me. Check out the link in the description to their website and use my coupon code that's in there to get a discount, and I'll put it on the screen here. It helps support myself and the channel so I can make content and doing real reviews, but also you get a solid product that I use all the time and basically am needed. On the palm, you have their Sensi Last Pro palm, which is honestly just a Nash palm. It's almost like a furry Nash palm though on this black piece with like some texture in it on top of their normal Nash. Feels fantastic. It honestly feels very close to what this is. It's not like a one-to-one thing. This is their Pro Nash. This one honestly feels a little bit softer, but I love the feel of this, and it honestly feels like a Pro Nash. Like, it feels like a glove that would be on Pro Stock gloves. I really, really like this, and they have the little holes in there for extra breathability, which honestly I don't mind either. I like how that works on the glove. Hopefully that doesn't affect durability much. I have no issues with this and no issues on the other hand, but I use my Tacky Mac and the kind of tape alternative, so I generally don't have a lot of wear on my palms, but you can see how they look right there and they feel great and I'm a huge fan of them. The other really cool things about them is they have this little piece right here, which is some venting. So it has that air net right there and air net over here, which is normally just, you can see how it's like Nash on this, right? So a little bit more areas for venting that can come through here. So I'm a fan of that design and idea too. The one thing I don't really understand is why they do this cuff all the way up. Like, it doesn't really make a huge difference. You don't grip a stick with this at all. Maybe it's just nicer than, like, easier to do this than another layer right here. So it makes that sewing kind of cheaper, easier, whatever it is. It's an interesting idea and I don't mind it. It kind of reminds me of some ski gloves that have like a thumb piece that is, or I think Verbero did this, where the thumb piece was for a visor, so it was soft, kind of like this for a visor. And I've seen ski gloves do it too, so it's kind of interesting. It almost feels like that, but you're not going to do that because there's stitching on there to wipe your visor off, which is odd that that is kind of designed that way, but it works really well and it flexes out pretty solid. So overall it's a pretty solid design. For our 3D grip test, I say 3D because it's just, this is like a 3D textured grip. We have a textured grip test. We're using our Bauer stick, which I've used for all my grips because it's a consistent grip, and Bauer has always been pretty good with their custom textured grips. We're gonna throw this on here and feel how it is, and honestly it feels so good. It is an absolutely fantastic palm feel, and while this is kind of textured, a weird thing in here, it doesn't really feel like that, and you can feel the texture on your palm a little bit less so than on the fingers, just because it is 2 layers. So there is this black layer and then there's that gray Nash layer behind it, so that does kind of lose some of the feeling on the palm there, but the fingertip feel is absolutely fantastic. And honestly, this feels really good to use and I absolutely love the feeling. It is almost a Pro Stock glove in terms of feel on there. And this glove, for example, the layers are just slightly thinner, so this one definitely you can feel a little bit more on that level, but not a whole lot. And again, same with the fingertips, where this Nash is slightly thinner than what this one is. Obviously those aren't as durable as the retail ones, because retail does have more of a durability concern, but these feel really good for what they are, and I'm an absolute huge fan of them. And I really wouldn't have them change much on here, just because you got to have some durability in here and just not all feel, and this does really well. Again, can feel all that texture through here, but you do lose some of that texture feeling on here because it is a double layer. So when we look at the fingers and the gussets, this is one piece where I think CCM could have done something a little bit different, what they did on the tacks, to make this glove really, really good. So you have spandex gussets, as you can see the stretch and my fingers coming through it, which is comfortable and fine, and it actually breathes really well, so you can feel the air coming through that gusset as well. I really wish they put the fingertips, like the Nash fingertips on here. So they did that on the tacks line, and so you can't blow your fingers past it, so it gives you a little bit more like protection to keep that finger block over your hand. Unfortunately, it doesn't have that here. Now, yes, you would lose some breathability with that. When you wear gloves with full Nash on here, they're a lot hotter. I have a couple, and it is a lot hotter than what it is when it's spandex or like air mesh, like kind of like this. So I really wish they added that there though, just to make it more of a pro stock glove in that sense, because this glove is pretty close to a pro stock. I should get a 15 for these, but because this is a 14, because that's what I do my hand fit test, so it's like fair over all the brands. Like you can see my fingertips are coming past here. So a little disappointing there, just because I do think that feature would make it more of a pro stock like glove, and it does help the fit profile and makes it a little bit better as well. So I wish that was there. Now we're on to our 3D hand fit test. So we have our two 3D printed hands here. This is basically a 15-inch palm. This is more of a 14-inch palm, so this is closer to what my hand is. So we'll throw them in here and see how much they come out of the ends to give you an idea of how long these gloves truly fit. So we have the hands in there, the 15 one in there, and the 14 in here. And when we look at it, you can see all the fingertips going past the ends right here. So as you can see, this glove fits true to size. A 14 is a 14. And we look at the smaller one, and you can see the fingertips are not blowing past the ends. This one's a little off a little bit right there, and right at the tip, but not blowing past nearly. And this one, again, blowing past. So fit is true to size in terms of overall length, which is pretty standard for CCM gloves. But again, CCM Pro Stock gloves like this one, this is a 14. It fits half an inch bigger than what this one does. The other part about this is the overall fit profile, which I mentioned a little bit earlier when just talking about the overview of glove, but it's super snug. Like it takes a bit to get off, and these ones, the Pro Stock ones, are a bit easier, as you can see, but these ones are super snug and super like tight fitting overall. It does open up on the cuff, but I haven't really had issues with people like cuffs being overall too tight. This is pretty, you can see how it kind of blooms out and opens up there. So kind of standard in that sense. Not a big fit profile change on the Jetspeeds. If you've been using any of the Jetspeeds, you know exactly how they fit. And the QLT had a bit tighter of a cuff here and a less blooming cuff, but it still had a pretty similar fit profile. Finally, we get on to weight and balance. These things are super light. Maybe not as light as the current Bauer ones where they took the plastics out, but this glove is super light too. But this is a very light feeling glove, and when it's on, it just feels very nice and overall natural. It feels fantastic on your hand. This is kind of the lightest I would really want companies to go before completely sacrificing for protection, because they have plastic inserts. They shouldn't get rid of those. And like I still think they could beef up the cuff a bit on there. But this glove feels fantastic, and honestly, this weight is so little to begin with that I feel like going any lighter is kind of a chasing numbers for marketing and not actually getting a better product out of it. So I like the changes that they're making on here, like with the air stuff, which really works. So it's a really solid glove. I'm very, very happy to recommend this glove. I think it's one of the best retail gloves there is on the market, to be totally honest. And if they made a few like small changes, like maybe beef up this cuff, the little Nash on there, it would honestly be probably the best retail glove you could currently buy. So that's a lot of praise for me. Like I'm a stickler for gloves. I have like 30 gloves myself, and I buy gloves all the time. This is a very, very solid one, and one I keep going back to over Pro Stocks. Like I've used this more than this in the summer, not just for reviewing, but because I really like these gloves. So that says a lot about it, and it's very solid. So huge credit to CCM for that. And yes, the AER-TEC totally works. It might be a gimmick because it's something new, but it cools your hands down and the air goes through there. So it's a pretty solid feature, and it really, really works. I'm excited to see where they go with that in the future. So that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for watching it. If you buy any of the CCM gear because of one of my videos, please let them know on social media. They sent me all this gear, and I'm really grateful for that, but it helps let them know that this content is helpful to them, and like them sending me the gear is actually a useful thing. So it would be greatly appreciated, so I don't have to try to grab these lines. And this also means I can use this gear on ice and actually do tests with it, which I can't do if I borrow gear. So that is greatly appreciated. Now, let me know in the comments what the next pair of gloves you want to see me review is. I've had a lot of people say they want to see the new Sherwood gloves. I can't get a hold of them. If you want to see me review them, reach out to Sherwood on social media. It'd be greatly appreciated. But that's about it for this video, so thank you very much for watching. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links in the description. If you're buying any hockey equipment and you want to support the channel and you live in Canada or US, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy and Pure Hockey. Clicking those links, making a purchase, gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can make more content and doing more reviews. Otherwise, check out Buy Me a Coffee. Everything goes through any of those links, always comes back into the channel, so I keep making more content and doing more videos. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.